Hello everyone. In one of my prior videos, I told you I wasn't planning on foster parenting anymore. Well, I hate to say it, but I tried and I couldn't quite give up working with these kids. So here's just a quick story on what's been going on since I last talked to you about the kids in my home. So I did have a period of not having any kids in my home. I was an empty nester, and honestly, it's nice not having all the extra drama, all the extra problems, but at the same time, it's kind of lonely since I'm the only person. I don't have a wife, I don't have any kids of my own. And so it really wasn't something I particularly enjoyed in that sense. I like having the company, I like having the extra noise, the extra, just atmosphere of having someone else around. And so I ended up deciding I would go back into foster parenting. I would continue doing it right after about a month pause. However, things didn't go exactly how I thought that they would go, but I think they went quite well. So my plan was just to look at the adoption profiles online for Wednesday's Child, and I would just take in a kid from there. Where, it'd kind of be where I select the kid. It'd be someone I know would work well in my home, not be dealing with all the extra problems. And so I did do that, and I did find a kid off of Wednesday's Child that I am currently in contact with. They're being a bit slow about placing him with me. It's been a several month process at this point, and he spent Christmas with me, which I'll talk to you guys more about that at a later point in a later video. But I think he's going to be a perfect fit in my home. He's a teenager and he's got his little issues and problems, but really nothing bad at all compared to what I've dealt with previously. But there's another kid who's been with me for a while, and he's actually become 18. He's going to remain in my home even though he's 18 now. But that particular kid, it was just kind of, I was really hesitant. I wasn't planning on taking him, but I caved. And I took him. So the way that phone call went, basically, he was in a completely different region of the state as a social worker for a completely different region of the state. But they didn't have anywhere to put him. He was close to turning 18. They really wanted him to go into a home. So I was like, all right, fine. I'll talk to him. Like, why do you want to talk to him? Well, because if I'm going to decide if he's going to come to my home or not, I want to get to know him a little bit. It's like, all right, well, we'll give you a number that you can call so you can talk to him. And so I did that, and I made some pretty clear-cut rules, right? Things are not necessarily going to be the way he wants, but this is how I want it to be. And so there's some tactics that go on here. So just so you know, one good way of knowing if a kid's going to be a troublemaker or not a troublemaker is if you kind of lay down the law. Are they going to abide by it or not abide by it? Especially if it's something that they don't particularly like. It's what you want, but it's not what they like. If they're willing to kind of bend to your will and not be just my way or the highway, that's a pretty good sort of test of knowing if they're going to be decent. And for him, I said, if you're in my home, I want you to go to church with me on Sundays. And with a lot of these kids, they're very sort of anti-religious, which, by the way, the kid that I found off of Wednesday's Child, and that I could potentially end up adopting, that was one of the things I kind of selected out was he put on there that religion was important to him, going to church was important to him, he wanted to be baptized. So I knew he'd be a perfect fit, which is part of why I knew, that's the kid I want in my home. But anyway, with this other kid, he's kind of on the other end where he grew up in a religious family, religious family that was also abusive, and so he's got sort of religion triggers, and so he doesn't like it. But he was willing to kind of cave to my desire that, hey, a lot of my sort of rules, a lot of my way of looking at life, everything else is established on my faith. So, at this point, I've changed jobs and I actually work for my church now. So it's just like ingrained in my life and my lifestyle. So I want the kids that are living with me, living kind of my lifestyle, more or less. I want them to understand this because this is kind of where I'm coming from. So I do want you to go to church with me because it's just an hour and a half commitment once a week, and you get to see where I'm coming from and you get to understand me, understand why I do what I do, at least to some extent. which once again, all these kids, they kind of push away from religion. He was one of them, but he said, all right, I will do that. And by all means, he kind of is to the T, once a week and that's it. Like if there's something else going on in the church during the week and I'm like, here, come. He's like, no, I get once per week, that's it. Once he holds me right there to the dot. But he's honestly been one of the sort of best kids I've had. We've had some issues. Really one issue, but it was more or less quickly resolved. But otherwise, his time here has been very good, and I've had even people compliment me on how well behaved this particular teenager was. But once again, it's because it wasn't from the get-go. I kind of laid down the law and said, all right, if you're willing to kind of do things my way, I'll take you. And if you're not willing to do things my way, then, sorry. And he was willing to do that. So I took him in. They drove him 150 miles to get him to my home. So if that kind of puts things in perspective in my particular state, I was the only home he had for 150 miles in this state that would take him. And yeah, I mean, they'd been looking for 2 weeks. So that just kind of puts things in perspective. So, but I took him and he ended up actually being a very decent kid. So it worked out well. It's not what I was planning to. I was just planning in the Wednesday's Child thing, which I'm doing. And hopefully I will actually be able to adopt a kid, man. He's also an older kid, so I'll have 2 kids that are just about kind of that point of adulthood. This other kid's 17 as well, that I know from the Idaho Wednesday's Child. He spent Christmas with me. He's also 17. He'll turn 18 during the summer, but he still needs to finish out another year of school. So with him, the plan is I'm looking at adopting him. I think that will work out really well. We seem to kind of have a lot better cohesion in sort of our worldview, simply because for him, religion is important, and for me, religion is important. So it just really helps. It doesn't feel like we're butting heads on things. It's it's one of the things that's been super frustrating for me is trying to say, hey, this stuff's inappropriate, that stuff's inappropriate, don't do this, don't do that, and it's just like they push back, why, and so I can go into the sort of philosophical and explain it philosophically speaking why it's not a good thing to be doing, but obviously that's kind of sort of very analytical, very kind of intensive, and a lot of kids don't want to listen to that. It's much easier if they have a sense of religiosity and can understand it's not what God would want. It's a much simpler way of kind of handling these sort of morality details. It's a much simpler way of handling it than just going into philosophy and explaining it philosophically why you don't want to do it, which is what I'm forced to do if they're atheist. So it's just a lot better for me taking this other kid. But once again, the other teenager I have who pushes against religion, and I have no intention of adopting him. He has no intention of me adopting him. But at least there's a sense of, you could say, sort of respect of he's willing to respect my rules. I'm willing to kind of respect his autonomy and just understand that things will be a certain way while he's in my home. If he wants to do things different, he's got to kind of get himself independent and leave my home. And at that point, life's kind of up to him. At that point, he's now officially turned 18, where he can do his own thing in his own space. He's in my space, my house. He kind of has to abide by how I want things done. And so I think we kind of have that understanding there. And so things are more or less going quite smoothly. So that's where we're at. As far as sort of what else has kind of made me want to quit foster parenting, well, I'll be honest with you. Foster parenting is in many ways a sort of traumatic experience for the people who choose to be foster parents, especially when you take the most difficult kids. I've had so many of my things damaged and destroyed. And generally speaking, you think of your home as being a place of peace, a place to relax, kind of get away from all the things on the outside, get away from work. But it's been pretty common with a lot of kids I've taken in that my home's been more stressful than work. And when it becomes more stressful than work, you really don't have a lot of peace in your life. It's very difficult. And then on top of that, a lot of the kids that have been in my home, because I've taken a lot of difficult kids, I frequently haven't had contact with them afterward, which has been really difficult. There's multiple reasons. One of the reasons is because my location just seems like I don't get hardly any local kids. I get kids that are from other areas that might be a decent distance away. That's been a small portion of it. The biggest portion of it is the kids I've taken have had such behavior issues that they've gone on to facilities, and the facilities, they don't allow contact, or foster care hasn't allowed contact, or one particular child I was able to continue contact for a while until the child just kind of like shut me out. I think it might have been a bit of a defensive sort of a tactic. It seemed to be he had in his mind that he should be back with me after so much amount of time. He wasn't able to get back to me within so much amount of time, and so it was just like, all right, well, I'm going to just cut off the relationship because I don't want to kind of feel hurt or feel pain. I don't want to feel like I've been rejected, so I'm going to reject you, kind of a deal, which is, all these kind of different things, they have a traumatizing effect on the foster parent, right? It's hard to have a sort of close relationship with a child and then have it just kind of cut. So one of the things that's also helped with this is one of the previous foster children I had, fortunately, he was a sort of local kid. He did go back home, not with the parent, and not with the parent that was far away, which has also happened, or in another state, which has happened. He was local, and so I kind of waited out a month, and then I went into contact with the parent, and I was able to continue visiting the child and also siblings. And so for 4 months now, it's been nearly every single weekend I've had this prayer kid in my home. Nearly every single weekend. It keeps me busy, but it's been good, and it's definitely helped me sort of psychologically speaking to not have it just be the relationship is over, cut, cold turkey, done, right? So it's helped me with this sort of healing process of dealing with the fact that foster care has honestly been a huge burden for me. It's helped a lot to be able to say, hey, like this past foster kid, I still get to see him every single weekend for, month after month after month. And so that's helped me out a lot to where, I don't feel so sort of burdened and broken, and I can kind of reach out and work with some other kids again. So those are all things that have kind of helped out. Definitely, I'm not doing foster parenting the way I did before. I'm no longer doing the whole, I'll just kind of try for everybody. I'm to the point where, at the end of the day, I know I'm kind of the foster parent that takes in the kids that don't have really anywhere else, especially if you work with the older kids. That's just the way it is. The older kids typically aren't very sort of desirable by most people. So I kind of recognize, hey, I can kind of open the door and lay out options for all these different kids. But, I can kind of pick and choose as well, right? The kids that are willing to try, I want them. Kids that aren't willing to try, sorry, because I'm just sick and tired of the manipulation and, just trying to use me to have, better access to drugs and other wrongful behaviors that you couldn't sort of sneakily obtain when you're in a facility, right? Because I've had that happen, or I've taken kids from a facility. It doesn't matter how much I lock them down, do this and that and the other, they still seem to find a way to get their hands on drugs and get into illegal behavior and get in trouble with the law. And, you just can't run your house the same way as you run a facility, so you just feel used. Like, I'm being used by taking you out of the facility so you can do all the wrong things that you weren't able to do when you know, you had such a rigid structure. And so I'm done with that. I'm not doing that anymore. You know, at the end of the day, I know I'm giving these kids an opportunity. So are you willing to put in the effort and try, do things my way rather than, you know, sort of my way, the highway? That's what I look for, and that's where I'm at. So anyway, I'm continuing with foster parenting, and at this point, just working with some older teenagers, potentially going to adopt a teenager. And I now have one 18-year-old who is just going to finish up with school and hopefully kind of get on with his life from there. So I will keep you guys updated as things progress and what happens. Thanks for watching.